Hello, everyone. I am back with another episode of Hush No More with Dr. Vanessa. I absolutely love doing a podcast because I get to talk to you about how I feel, what I think, bring topics that we haven't been discussing. Hush No More, we support survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, child sex abuse, incest, all of those crappy topics that people don't want to talk about. And I just believe that we should have real open conversations because if we don't talk about it, how can you prevent things from happening to you? So that is this platform. And I am just really excited for the topic today. We are going to be talking about conflicted, right? The body's response to sexual trauma. Sometimes we don't understand sexual trauma. We don't understand like what's happening to us, or you don't understand what's happening to your family members. And so we're going to talk about that and just have a really good conversation. And I have an amazing guest that I'm going to bring on tonight. But before that, I do want to mention my amazing sponsor, which is CTR Media Network. They have a live streaming service, it's a podcast service, amazing podcast, amazing TV shows are on there. And Dr. Tina allows Hush No More to be on that platform. And I'm so grateful for her. So you can all go to CTR Media Network, follow them, shout them out, and support them. And I think that's important. I think it's important for us to have places that have positive conversations and not all the negative, like the crime. And I don't like that. So I like to have a good place. And that's the home of Hush No More. So I'm going to bring my guest on. And I want you all to meet the amazing Kelly Wallace. Welcome,
Hello.
Kelly. I'm so excited that we get to do this. Like, finally, we get to really talk about some good, juicy stuff, some good information for people. And so I'm so glad that you're here. And I want you to tell the audience, like, who you are, just a little bit about Kelly.
My name is Kelly Wallace, and I am a survivor of early childhood sexual abuse at the hands of my paternal grandfather, who sexually abused me when I don't really know when it started, but it ended around 7 when I saw a sexual abuse awareness video in my second grade classroom. And that really clued me in that something was not right, that what was happening to me was not right. And so I ended up telling my mom what was happening. My parents were going through a very messy divorce. My mom believed me, which is kind of a rare exception, I think. And she reported my sexual abuse to the police. And my grandfather was eventually charged with sexual abuse. And my dad happened to be a district attorney in the same county where my grandfather lived. And there was a real conflict of interest because he ended up assisting my grandfather in his legal defense. And so the result of that was that I ended up testifying against my grandfather a year later, and he was found not guilty. And what I didn't know at the time was that there's a very small conviction rate. There's only a 1.5 to 3% chance of someone being convicted of any type of sexual assault. And so I carried that with me. I carried that burden on my back with me for many, many years. And it wasn't until I was at a conference in 2013 that I learned that statistic. And so it was like a weight was lifted off my back. And the thing that was also very confusing to me was that the sexual abuse felt good, and in a way that it was very confusing, and I carried that with me. I felt like almost like it was my fault for many, many years. And so my body's response was, the title of the show. It was just very conflicted. This terrible thing that had happened to me. And I'm not saying that sexual abuse is okay in any context. It is not. My perpetrator was in his 50s. I was 7 years old as a child. And so I'm not saying that it was right at all. But what ended up happening was I created a viral video on Instagram a couple of years ago on that very topic, and it hit like 650,000 views. And I really felt like, oh, wow, I am really onto something, because it really resonated with so many people. And there's just so many of us around the world. this is a silent epidemic that no one really wants to talk about. The media completely ignores it. And so, I felt like in that moment, I was able to give voice to something that is super, super common, but again, no one really wants to talk about. So that has been my experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, but that's why we hush no more. That's why we have to talk
Yeah.
about it. So I'm gonna ask you some questions, and I honor you in this moment for being so vulnerable. I don't even want to say vulnerable because you're so strong and courageous. Like you are doing the thing, right? In your advocacy work. And so I'm really grateful that you're sharing it because I think parents don't even realize this, right? So it was your father that protected really your grandfather. So that was his dad.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
you were 7. I don't like when parents don't agree with any type of sex education, like trauma, to let us know like what it is, because the video was important to you. Do you think that more videos should be shown to children so that they can know what type of abuse is happening or what it is?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, and we need to be like naming body parts with
Right.
children, in a context that's appropriate. I thought what was happening to me was normal. I thought this is what grandfathers and granddaughters do, and so having that video was integral. I mean, I think the abuse could have continued for a long time if I hadn't seen that video, and that spark in my brain, you know, came through. And the funny thing was that during the trial, one of the questions that they asked me was something like, um, "Do you think that video planted ideas in your head?" I mean, this is 1985, so it
Right.
was a very different time. But I have all of the court transcripts from. Well, I have my testimony from that trial, and so I have been able to go back and review it and read through it. And yeah, that question was just like wildly inappropriate, and it was just like, "Hello, yes, we need to be talking about this. We need to have videos in age appropriate videos and educational materials available to people to have these conversations."
You do. And me, I think it's hard for people to understand how someone can think that is okay. But if you don't know nothing different, that's it, right? If nobody's ever told you that this is not supposed to be happening, you think it's supposed to be happening, and you really was isolated. And
Mhm.
I applaud your mom for believing you and doing something about it. Because
Oh,
I don't understand how parents don't really even take their children serious when they come forward and tell them that something is happening to them.
yeah.
And it, how are you and your mom, like, how did that affect her?
My mom was a survivor herself,
Mhm.
and she was able to kind of use my experience and like gain a whole lot of education about she was seeing me. Like, she knew that I had a lot of anxiety, and she knew that I had fear, like this extreme fear of people, and she couldn't ever really like put a name to it or explain like why I had these behaviors. I was saying things like I wanted to die, but by the time I was 9, when I was 7. And so, when I came forward and I told her what happened, it was like a lightning bolt, and she kind of had an explanation for why I was acting the way that I was. And so, my mom became almost like obsessed with keeping records of every phone conversation that she had with my dad. Every scratch. She has archived like everything from before the trial, the police investigations, like everything has been archived into these binders. There's like 9 of them. They're actually behind me. And so she has become like the cataloger of events for me. And she has allowed me to. I've been working on a manuscript. And so what that has done for me is allowed me to have reference materials for me to like actually pull the testimony from the trial. Is I just had to go in and like literally like copy and paste it into my manuscript, because that was her. I think that was her way of trying to make sense of things and like have yeah, make sense of what was going on in this crazy experience.
Yeah.
she was having.
I don't think parents think about that. I love that you just shared that because parents and grandparents really can document the experiences. So for you, you told me that it felt good, it was pleasurable. What was pleasurable about the situation with your grandfather, with the experiences?
I think it was just like the 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 touch, my without going into too much detail, there wasn't um it was more of, like it felt good, and there was, like climaxing, and that was what felt good to me. I didn't have any context for what was going. I didn't know what was going on, so for me it was just like my body's normal reaction to what was taking place. And it was confusing because I was also having all of these nightmares. I was having nightmares of my grandfather like chasing me. My mom has also cataloged all of, because I would draw what the dreams looked like or what was going on in the dreams, and so my mom has kept those too. And so that experience changed my brain, and it changed my lifelong experience with like seeking that out, because part of my experience was that, like, because it felt good, I was going to my grandfather's bedroom. What was happening was he would go to bed during visits with my dad was living with my grandparents, and my grandfather would go to bed, and he was a heavy drinker. He couldn't eat solid foods. He subsisted on like Carnation instant breakfast and ice cream that he made into these shakes, and beer and cigarettes. And so he was most likely like drunk or yeah, out of his mind when he was doing this to me. And so he would go to bed, and then I would follow him into the room, and I thought, oh, because I'm seeking this out, it is my fault. But in reality, my physiological response was seeking it out. I was not. And so that was ultimately very, very confusing to me.
Mhm. Did you feel like it was love? Did you feel like he loved you?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because it has been so long. Um, I don't, I don't know. I yeah, the memories I have of him are just, they're he was a rancher, and so they lived out in the middle of nowhere. And he would wake up in the morning and be out in it was like a kitchen nook, and he would be smoking and drinking a cup of coffee, and then I would like go sit on his lap and like watch. We'd talk about like, oh, this is what I'm going to do today. There's cows out in the field. I'm going to go check on the cows, or whatever. I would say there were bits of it, but I never connected the sexual abuse with love. Like I never equated that with love.
Right.
Yeah.
And you really didn't even know what it was. You don't know what love,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
don't know what that means, what that at that age. And so
Totally.
Kim has a comment. She said, it was explained to me that although the touch is bad and unwanted, your body doesn't know that and will still get aroused. Absolutely true. When you share this with people, Kelly, that you were aroused, right? Doesn't mean that you wanted it. Do people believe you? How do people respond to that?
When I went viral with that video, the comments were all like, oh, yes, that was my experience as well. I'm so glad that someone finally put voice to what you're saying. Like 95% of the comments were like, I experienced this too, and I felt like I was glad that I was able to give voice to people's experiences. And I completely blanked on your question.
Was it so? Was all the experiences positive, or did people have like negative things to say to you?
I mean, there were just like some creeps in the comments. There were there were definitely people who said, this is feeding into that sexual abuse is okay. And while I saw that point, I really just disagreed with that because I felt like this is something that, this is a topic. This is like a hot topic no one wants to talk about. And so by giving it voice, that was really freeing, as I've said.
to be able to.
Yeah.
I've talked to men who have actually ejaculated when they didn't want to during sexual abuse,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a hurting thing. And it's a confusing thing for them as well. And so not only does it happen to women, it happens to men, and especially when you're younger, right?
Mhm.
Because you don't even know your body and control. How does it affect? Did it affect you in relationships? Did it affect you in relationships as an adult?
As an adult, the the primary driver of my relationships was sex. And so the other things, like how a person treated me, those became secondary. And so they have, the long, even though I've had decades of therapy, the long-term ramifications for me, because of that physiological response, was just that it was the driver in my relationships with people, and it became the focus. And I actually, started going to a 12-step recovery program that deals with sex and love addiction several years ago. And it was only through that program that I was really able to like do some more inner work and really look at the patterns and see what was going on, and actually like learn how to put myself first in relationships, and really put sex in the back seat and look at how people are treating me. Like, like if I go out on dates with people, like, are they showing up on time? Are they treating me well? Are they kind? Like those are like the things, those are like the building blocks of a healthy relationship that, like, being raised by a single mom, I never learned any of that stuff too. Um, I have always been kind of like the entrepreneur, and always like go get what I want. And so in heteronormative relationships, that doesn't really work very well. So I had to learn that, like I had to learn, oh, you get to sit back and like let the other person show you who they are.
Yeah. And I don't think that people realize that being very hypersexual, having multiple partners, is a sign of any type of sexual trauma, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the things that we go through. And they'd be like, oh, you're a whore, and they just condemn you. But it is really a trauma response. And it's conflicting because even though you've been sexually abused, you really don't want to have sex with multiple partners. But then it's something that is like, yeah, you can have sex with multiple partners, or you don't want to have sex at all. And
Yeah.
that is like the part that is conflicting. It's like, I don't want to have this behavior. I don't understand this behavior, but I'm doing this behavior.
Yeah.
Was that something that you was like in your mind thinking about too? Or I know I was.
Yeah, I had a therapist explain it just the way you did. Like when you're a victim of sexual abuse, you're generally, as an adult, you're left with just like a giant pile of anxiety, and you either become hypersexual, or you enter into a relationship with someone, and then you lose interest in sex completely. So for me, um, I kind of, yeah, I didn't understand, like, I look like very kind of like prim and proper and quiet and reserved, yet there's a side of me that would come out, and it would be like very confusing, like, why am I like this? And why am I like, yeah, seeking sex out with people first? And
Yeah.
yeah.
When I don't even really like sex, or sometimes I don't even really like myself or understand myself. And I think that's a misconception that we have, or people don't understand. I wanted to talk about it because I think when we share our experiences, and it makes people understand what's happening to them,
Mhm.
right? And it's difficult. It's very difficult for us to be able to navigate that.
Yeah.
You have a question. Gloria wants to know, how old were you when all of this was going on?
Yeah. So my mom estimates that it was probably around the age of 4, and then it stopped around 7. Now, my parents got a divorce when I was about 6. And so I wasn't in super regular contact with my grandparents from 6 to 7, 7.5. And so I've been able to kind of piece together in my mind that like 20 incidents probably took place.
And 20 incidents is one too many.
Totally. Yeah.
One too many. Kim says, it happened to me when I was young and I couldn't understand how something I was told was inappropriate and that I didn't want to happen excited my body. I was so confused for so long that I thought it was my fault and something that maybe I did want to happen when in reality I didn't. Hell, I didn't even fully understand what was really going on. Thank you, Kim. I honor you in this moment for sharing. That's big. Thank you for letting us know, like, we're not alone, that things do happen to all of us. So that's big. Thank you. Thank you for that. You
Yes.
have a comment? You got a response to that? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was kind of what I was talking about when I first came on, like I was so confused by um the way that this was making me feel. Like I just couldn't make heads or tails of it in my child brain. And it wasn't until I really, I had early intervention, like childhood therapy, because of what happened to me. And so that was really the place where I was able to kind of start piecing out. So sorry, my cat likes to be on
No,
camera.
your cat wants to be on camera. What's your cat
He
name?
loves being on camera. Our boy loves to be on camera. And yeah, and so, I think the therapy that I had, which I think I'm extremely privileged to be able to have access to that at such a young age. I don't think that's a common experience. And but it was so integral, like, to my healing journey and
Your
process.
mom was amazing. I
Yeah.
wish my mom was like your mama, like for real. Because I be talking to parents like, really, you really like at least call the police, at least call the
Yeah.
police and do an investigation, even if you're not sure. At least to have an investigation done. At least go and get an exam for your child to see if they have had sex before, instead of just saying no, there's no way. Because you just really wouldn't think that a grandfather would do that.
Mhm.
Right? But people do. Incest is real, and we don't talk about it enough. And so it is confusing, and we don't understand. Right?
Totally. Yeah.
We don't understand it. My computer, Kelly, is acting crazy. When I say acting crazy, so what I'm gonna do is. Oh, Kim had another comment. I thought for years I was like the old folks would say back then I was being fast. Nah, girl, you weren't being fast. You weren't being fast. I'm gonna have to go get another charger. I'm so sorry, Kelly.
Oh,
Give
no
me
worries. It's all good.
because it broke. Give me 1 second.
Oh no.
I said that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. Is there some advice that you can give to parents?
Yeah, I think the really important thing is just to keep an eye on your child and, like, really watch for those behaviors. I think that was, like, unexplained behaviors, like anxiety around certain family members or community members. I think that my mom was keeping an eye on that stuff, but didn't really have an explanation for why. And so if you can, just, supervision too, I think is super important, is like knowing where your kids are, who they're with. And I think one of the other things that in my daily work as a social worker, I try the 2-1 rule, which is like I'm always trying to make sure that there are 2 people in the room with a client and myself, so that there's nothing improper or could be construed as improper going on. So I think that is also something that could be applied to, like, a childcare situation. So if your child's in daycare, really asking, like, what are those policies, if they don't have them in place, for keeping children safe. Because my grandfather was a community member. He was a 4-H member. He was a volunteer with Future Farmers of America. He was on the school board. So he had really integrated himself into
With
different
children.
environments where children are present. And so that is something to really kind of keep an eye on.
And I always tell people it's the ones you would never expect. It's not the stranger danger that you need to be afraid of, right?
It's the
That's
nice
not the one
guy.
that's tripping. Yeah, that's not the one. It's
Yeah.
not the stranger danger. It's the one that's right there in your face, that's smiling, picking up your kids, that's loving on your children. And I keep telling parents, you got to pay attention to this. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Kim got a comment for her. You want to read it?
Her mom is awesome. I still haven't talked to mine about what happened. I've tried, but I can't get the words out to say it. Yeah, I mean, I think that having the supportive parent was really integral for me. Like my dad and I, he never believed me, probably because he was a victim himself. And then he went on to marry someone who has stood behind my grandfather. So I have, I have the one supportive parent, and then I have the two, the dad and the stepmom, who are like, oh no, that never happened. He was the amazing person, and we just have very different versions of this person.
What happened?
Yeah.
So who abused your dad? Because I'm nosy.
So the likelihood of so my grandfather was born in the Depression, in rural Eastern Oregon. It's very there's cowboys, it's like rodeos, and my grandmother was actually she abandoned most of the children, and I think so they were farmed out to different family members, and
Okay.
my grandfather was raised primarily by cowboys, and he was sleeping. Yeah, he was sleeping in bed with cowboys. And then consequently, growing up, my dad has, there were two brothers. I have two uncles. One of them passed away. But they were sleeping in bed with my grandpa. So I think the likelihood of it happening with them was very high as well. And then during the police investigation, it came out that my grandfather had been doing a bunch of peeping Tom things with an aunt, one of my aunts. And, he was saying that he wanted to sleep in the same room as a 12-year-old girl when he was chaperoning these future farmers of America trips. So, he was, that was how he operated, so what happened to him, and we know that it's perpetrated, and and it's on my mom's side too. Alcoholism and sexual abuse run on both lines of my family tree, on both sides.
And a lot of people don't want to admit that. They do not want to talk about the sexual abuse, the domestic violence, the incest, none of that goes on in family, and then it repeats itself. So
Totally.
for me, you got to talk about it. If not, it won't stop. It'll continue to the next generation.
Right? Yes.
And that's crazy. Were you ever hyper vigilant? What are some of the other things? You said nightmares, hypersexual, fear. Was there any other signs that
super anxious, just very, I had, I would run, as a child, I remember meeting people, and I would think I have to come up with the perfect thing to say to that person to get them to like me. There was just this anxiety, and I think that was more of a teenage thing, but yes, just being very quiet, anxious. I had, an individualized education plan when I was in kindergarten for anxiety. So, when my mom says she thinks it started when I was 4, she often points to that IEP when I was in kindergarten that says, Kelly's very anxious. And, that's, I don't know very much about, if people are born with anxiety or if it's taught, so for me, there was always this this hyper vigilance about me. I cried a lot, very, very sensitive, very sensitive.
Yeah. There is research that says that some people are just more prone to anxiety or not. A lot of more research talks about experiences, right? And then also fear, which is actually false, anything that we tell our mind. So you really can prevent and cure anxiety if you look at it from that standpoint. Kim says she thinks it's in every family. It's in a lot. I don't know if it's in every Kim, but it's definitely in a lot of families. It doesn't matter about race. It doesn't matter about your culture,
Economic. Yeah.
right, your religion, it's in all. Like, so
Mhm.
not every family, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Gloria said, God bless you. And she had a niece that her dad did it to her, and her mom never did anything about it.
Yeah. And
So
that's such a common experience. Yeah.
very common
Very.
experience. And I be snapping. I get mad when they
I do
talk to me. I'm
too.
like, well, I'm not sure, if it really happened or not. You're not sure. You don't really know, right? As a parent, and there's not really a rule book of how to navigate this, but you
Yeah.
could report it and get an investigation and then see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
And for me, even though your grandfather didn't go to jail, you still stood up for yourself. You
Yeah.
still reported, you still told, and that is big,
Yeah.
right? That is big.
Yeah.
For me, I think that I want more people to understand like how it feels, right? What is this like?
Hmm.
And I don't think nobody really talks about it. And so I was excited that you wanted to talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
and people are like, how can if you enjoyed it, then if it was pleasurable, not enjoyed, if it was pleasurable, then you must have wanted it. But people forget about grooming. You're being groomed, you're giving gifts. And I
Yeah.
have on my consent t-shirt. You cannot consent as a child. You don't
Yeah.
even know what it is or what it's like. So how can you say that? Like that child wanted it. What? That child liked me. I've heard
Yeah.
predators say, well, the child was coming on to me. What? And like
Yeah.
you were going to your grandfather, but he had groomed you really to come to
Mhm.
him, right? He
Yeah.
created this. It was a norm. It
Yeah.
was a norm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't you wanting to go. He taught you to want to come in there.
Totally. Yeah.
You were
Totally.
taught that. You were
Yeah.
taught that. And
Yeah.
for Mhm.
And he was, it was pretty tame, and then it was definitely starting to like ramp up. So the grooming was, like, let me test her and see what I can get away with this time, and then maybe next time I can get away with something else. So I think, if, like, again, if I hadn't seen that video, it would have just gotten way worse, way worse.
I live in South Carolina, and they are against any type of education when it comes to child sexual abuse, body anatomy, any of that, right? They don't even want to say penis and vagina, which is crazy to me. You should teach your children that. You shouldn't teach them like cookie or wee because like
Yeah.
how you had to go to court and that doesn't stand up in court. They'll say that was a misunderstanding.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
misunderstanding. I've seen cases get thrown out because of that. And so I tell parents, no, you teach your children the real name of the body part. Why are we ashamed of what the name of the body part is? So
Totally.
that's big for me. Okay. It's big.
Totally.
Kim said, I think I became very timid and closed off. I did a lot of stuff to get people to like me or to have friends. I never understood why that was so important to me. But I also tested my real friends to push them away. Shout out to my bestie who went to hell and back with me and are still here because I definitely tested them a lot. And they probably don't even understand that. Kim, did you ever talk to them about that? Like pushing people away. That is definitely something that's conflicting. I like you. You're my friend. You're
Yeah.
nice to me, but I don't trust nobody. I don't want
Yeah.
nobody around me. Or maybe you'll know my secret. That's
Yeah.
conflicting. That's a response that's very conflicting.
Yeah. And it's also very common. It's super common to have that kind of push pull. I think sexual abuse survivors have a very hard time. I mean, I guess I should really speak for myself, like a hard time sometimes maintaining friendships. Like, I have a lot of people that I've been friends with for a long time, but sometimes, that, like, oh, you're too close, I want to push you away,
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
there.
And I always tell people, friendships is difficult for me. People like, you got a lot of friends. No, I don't. I'm very private. People don't think I'm private because I talk about trauma a lot and my
Yeah.
experiences, but that's from a learning lens. And that's because from when you start healing, it's easier to talk about it, right?
Ah,
It's not because I'm like friends. And Gloria said, that's it right there. Like she's really agreeing with you. And
yeah.
Kim, they
Yeah.
do now because they are the only ones who know the whole story. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm grateful for your friends and I honor them because they stood by you. Plus, you're hilarious, Kim. You're hilarious. Kim is the executive director of Hearty Hands, so she does epilepsy
Oh,
awareness, and we've connected childhood sexual trauma with epilepsy. And so we're waiting for those conversations because that's in your brain and the triggers. And so we're really glad that people come forward now and start talking about early childhood sexual abuse and they have epilepsy.
Yes.
Now it's affected my dating life. I just don't trust easily, so I push them away. I think most of us really deal with dating, right? Especially when you're in a good space and you're not hypersexual and you're
Yeah.
not responding from that sexual space. We do deal with dating, do deal with trusting, right?
Yeah.
Deal with
Yeah.
trusting.
Definitely.
Yeah, trust is
Definitely.
big.
Yeah.
My therapist said, "Do I trust myself to make the right decision?"
Mm.
No, I didn't. For a while, I did not. I realized it wasn't that I shouldn't trust other people. Do I trust myself to make the best decision for me? And so
Yeah.
I worked really, really hard on that. And Vanessa is one of my besties. I just was evolved when we met, so she missed Moody Kim. Oh, I'm glad I missed Moody Kim. I need to meet Moody Kim. Gloria said, I have a guardian child that was touched at 2, and he did it to someone, so I put him in therapy. Good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that's another thing that's not really talked about, um, in my, when I was started working on my manuscript, I realized that there were other children that I was like acting out sexually with. And, there was like a family friend we were both like the same age and we were just like going off and like rubbing up against each other. And there was like this shame about that for so long, and then when I started um, working on my manuscript, I was like, oh, this is actually I think it's a very common experience that's not talked about. And I don't know where that person is. I know that he went on to molest his brother, and I think that he like ended up going to juvenile hall because of that, So yeah, it's it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I don't believe that every child that is touched will abuse
Totally.
a child. And I tell people that all the time. Just because you've had some type of sexual trauma does not mean statistically that's not the case. People love to say that's why, oh, because it happened to them, they did it to someone else.
Yeah.
That's an excuse. don't
Yes.
give I don't give nobody an excuse. No, that was not. Sometimes you don't know right from wrong and you
Yeah.
repeat what's happening to you. But that's
Exactly.
not every experience. That is not right. And
Yeah.
all we can go by as a child is what we know and see, right? So I always tell parents, pay attention to when your children are acting out. Pay attention when they are touching themselves. That's
Yes.
not normal.
That's a big one. Yeah. That is
Yeah,
a big one.
that is a big one, and nobody don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you walk in the room and your son is ejaculating at like 7 years old, that's not normal, right? Or
Yeah.
your daughter is actually inserting her hand vaginally, that's not normal because she's trying to find pleasure. That's not normal. So we got
Yeah.
to pay attention to it and don't hide it. We got to get them the help that they need.
Yeah. Totally. Learned behaviors. Yeah.
That's big. I definitely teach my children the correct name of the body parts. Yes, I don't understand the shame associated with the body. I love to talk about the body and our and nudity and just who we are that God created us to be. But we were taught to be embarrassed about it, and we should not be. And Kim
Yeah.
said it happened to me, and I definitely don't want to hurt anyone like
Oh
ours.
yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt nobody else.
No. 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 No.
Don't. And you don't even at that age, you don't even realize that it's causing trauma or hurting somebody else, right?
Mhm.
They don't. But the adults know.
Yeah.
The adults know what they're doing, and so we have to hold adults accountable, right? And I would tell parents, pay attention to the relationship. Should nobody like your child more than you? Like, want to be around your child all the time? That's a sign, right?
Yeah.
You want to be around my child all the time, or you get upset when I say my child can't come over or my child can't go to
Mhm.
this event with you. You got to pay attention to that, and
Totally.
yeah, but our bodies,
Eyes. Yeah.
I need to have eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pop up on you when you got my kids. And it was difficult for me with children. I didn't want anyone to keep my kids. Like my children never stayed the night at my grandmother's house. My
Oh,
grandmother had 22 children. It's a lot. a lot of people over at my grandmother's house. My children never stayed. My children didn't stay the night at nobody's house. You can come over here and stay. Like, don't go in nobody's house.
Yeah.
I was overprotective. I didn't know the balance because of what had happened to me. And
Hmm.
I didn't remember my trauma. And so I actually told my kids, I didn't allow my kids to do much of nothing. You can go out in the yard or stay in this cul-de-sac, but I didn't trust people. I just didn't really know why.
Yeah.
But it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's real difficult.
Yeah. My mom did not allow us to have male babysitters at all. And she allowed us to go to people's houses. But, I remember when I was like 12, I had a new friend and she was dropping me off. And she didn't like this new friend. She was like, "Are you sure about this? Are you sure you don't want to come home right now?" And I was like, "No, no, no." I mean, nothing happened, but just that, she didn't want that to happen again. So
Right.
she was hyper vigilant, and I totally understand why.
Yeah. I understand why too. I definitely understand why
Yeah.
your mom was like that. But some people let their kids go anywhere, hang out with anybody, stay over anybody because they want a break. They're happy their kids not home, but you don't. I just seen a case where the best friend's nephew raped her daughter. One of my clients, her best friend's nephew raped her.
Um,
And you just don't, you have to have a conversation. You have to talk about it, and you don't ever know where it's going to happen.
yeah.
And I posted the other day that, I'm mad that sexual assault still happen. No is no, right? Like, why is this
Mhm.
going on? And what is the problem that we can't stop it, right? Or we don't understand. And so I'm glad that we can have this conversation because for me, I didn't understand what was going on with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just no one's reporting about it. There's not a lot of academic research. Yeah, we're not having conversations about it on purpose because it's meant to be hidden and kept in the shadows.
Mhm, mhm. And it's uncomfortable for some people. I
Yeah.
have no problem talking about sex. My son was like, "Ma, I don't want to talk about that." I have no problem. Because I think we have to change that narrative. It is normal. It's normal. It's something that our body does in relationships, and it's a normal thing for us. But not in
Yeah,
our society, it doesn't. Right?
totally. Totally. Yeah.
In the work that you do, how do you actually help in this advocacy? What does advocacy look like with you?
I think I've been super active on Instagram sharing my experiences about, what it's like as an adult, talking about my experience surviving sexual abuse. And so, it looks like that's how it looks like in one avenue. And then, incest aware, I've been super active with I attended a conference in March where I was on a survivor panel to a group of high schoolers in Seattle. In November, I'm hoping to come to Georgetown Day School and share that message as well. And I think just by being vocal and being open about what happened to me when I was interviewed by police detectives at 7, and I had to talk in open court with um, strangers. I had to talk to virtually, yeah, I had to talk to all these people about what happened to me. So I became very accustomed to talking about my story and what happened to me. And so I think just by being that mouthpiece, people feel very, very comfortable coming to me and sharing their experiences about what happened to them and being a resource for people in that way.
In that space?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm proud of you. I love that you
Me
do
too.
share what happened to you. And I absolutely love Incest Aware. That is actually
Yeah.
how me and Kelly connected, was through Incest Aware. And I'm in that group and I meet the most amazing people.
Totally.
Amazing people. So if you're struggling with incest, you just want to be in a good circle of people that understand you. Incest Aware is definitely a place that you can get. And that's how you say it, Incest Aware.
Yeah.
Right? And you can look them up, and it's a really good group. Tiara says, even at 13, I still regularly have the conversation with my son. So I'm glad I broke that cycle with him.
Me
Yeah,
too.
we
Me
can
too.
have. I tell people as a baby, when you changing diapers, you should be saying, "This is the only place that mommy and daddy could touch.
Yes.
Nobody else should touch." You start that in parent.
Yeah.
It starts that, right? So thank you, Tiara, for continuously having that conversation. But it starts very early. People are like, well, I think it's too early. It is never too early. Like it happened to you starting at like 4.
Yeah.
So we got to start talking early, right?
Yeah.
It's also not happening because people don't want to believe Mr. John and Miss Sally would do something like that because they
Yes.
good God-fearing people or give so much to the community that they couldn't possibly do anything like that. Now that was your granddaddy. Yeah, your granddaddy was the volunteer of the year. Like definitely. People think they never would. Now
Yeah.
I don't want to leave out women too. So thank you about bringing up Miss Sally, Kim, because
Yeah. Yeah.
women are doing this to little boys. And they'll be like, "Oh, she's a cougar." No, no, you're a child molester. Like, no, you are not. That's what you're doing is harming our men. And I'm like, I'm dating and I can't really find a healthy man because a lot of them been abused as children and
Yeah.
by women and by mothers. Like mothers are doing this, aunts and
Mhm.
the mother's best friend. So it's not just men, it's women. So you got to be careful about who you leave your kids around, right?
Totally.
You can be
Totally.
same on same sex. So the conversation definitely has to be had.
Yeah. Definitely for sure.
Oh, Gloria said your cat really want a camera so pretty. Yeah. Your cat want to be on camera for real, Kelly.
Every time I'm on a Zoom call, he's like there. He's like right next to me. So, yes,
I love it. I love it.
my heart cat. Yeah.
I love that. So, is there anything that you really want people to know as it relates to just being that confliction between your body and knowing what happened to you and being confused? What is something that you would want people to know about that?
I just want people to be able to talk about that in a more, I don't want to say like everyday convert. Well, maybe an everyday conversation. Like I want that experience to become more normalized, because I think for so long that I carried around this piece of me that thought there was something just like deep down wrong, like there's something wrong with me, and I was like defective. But having that video go viral really just gave me the strength, I think, to actively have this conversation. And I'm hoping people will be able to just be able to have these conversations with their friends, like make it um, normal.
Okay, make it normal.
Make it
And
normal.
we should never carry the embarrassment and shame of what happened to us. I always say the person that abused you, they're the one that should be carrying the embarrassment and shame.
Yeah.
Stuff that we shouldn't carry. You
Yeah.
should be embarrassed when I tell my story or I go tell the police. When I tell anybody what happened to me, you should be shamed, not me.
Yeah. There's a great woman in New Zealand who has a foundation called Handing the Shame Back. I mean, I just love that, that name, because it's like I've carried the shame for so long. I'm giving it back to you guys, you know. Um, I don't want it anymore.
I don't want it anymore. I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I think that's important. Okay. It is
Totally.
very important that we do not carry the shame, that we don't allow other people to still have power over us. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
Nobody had that power.
Yeah.
Take your power back and don't
Yes.
let nobody have that. Shadero said, I had to explain that to my kids, and now I am reteaching what is wrong touch and right touch. Not only mommy and daddy can touch. Whoa, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, what if it is your granddaddy? What if it is your daddy? That's right. We do have to talk about that. That it could be another parent, yeah, or a
Totally.
grandparent. Right? Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you for that insight. Kim says, and by telling your kids your story could possibly help your kids understand good touches from bad and why it's okay to tell if you experience an inappropriate situation with someone. Yeah, we got to give our kids spaces, the permission to do this. And
Mhm.
don't tell your kids if they come and tell you something that you're going to kill the person that harmed them. That's the worst thing you could do because they shut down and they fear for you. They don't want you to go to jail. You don't tell
Mm.
kids that. You just tell kids that if something ever happens to you, let me know. I love you. I trust you, and we'll get help together. We'll do this together. We can go to the police together. We do it together, right? And that nobody can ever harm me because a lot of times the predators will say, if you tell anyone, I'll kill your mom or your dad,
Mhm.
right? So you got to say that. You got to tell them, if anybody tell you that they'll harm me, don't worry about me because I can take care of myself. I worry about you. So
Yeah.
having those conversations, because that's what's really happening.
Yeah.
Gloria said, I
Couldn't.
truly enjoyed the conversation. I have to get on my prayer call. God bless y'all. God bless you too, Gloria. Thank you for coming on and just talking with us. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Um, for me, I think it's important after any type of childhood abuse, any type of abuse as an adult, domestic violence, sexual assault, any type of those abuses, we have to look at ourselves from a sexual standpoint, seeing if we're having unhealthy relationships, if we're understanding our body, if we know what's happening to us. Are we in a place where we don't want anybody to touch us? Are we startled when somebody comes up behind us? If somebody try to grab us on our neck when we're having sex, does that bother us? Does
Mhm.
it make me feel uncomfortable? Am I the aggressor when we're having sex? Do I have too much sex? Is there a balance? And that is what I've really been focusing on and talking about our sexual energy. And I don't think when we report or we go to get help that anybody talks about how our sexual energy is affected, and
Mhm.
that we can heal that space, that you can find a balance, that you can meet somebody and love yourself, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to have orgasms. Like, people are upset because they had orgasms during sexual abuse. It's okay. I do want to talk about. I'm going to show y'all this, and I love it. We're going into experience the healing power of your sexual energy. It's a 6-week journey to talk about all the different things that go on with us in relationships, and how do we heal it. And I have a workbook. We have guest speakers come in, and I think we should be open to talking about our sexual energy and what does that look like, and not to shy away from it. And that's the info. The first one will be June 25th through July 30th. We'll meet on Wednesday nights for an hour, and you have homework. Got some homework. And then August the 6th through September 20th, we'll be doing it. September 10th, we'll be doing it again. So there's 2 sessions, and it's bit.ly. So bit.ly power of energy is the website that you can go to look into it. And if you're having like problems in your marriage, problems in your relationships, or people tell you, oh, you don't understand, and you're confused, this is where we will look at that. We will look at, why is this still affecting you sexually? And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about us having conversations. Okay, really excited about that. Okay. This has been a good interview,
Yeah,
Kelly.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I met Kelly in Oregon a couple of weeks ago at a conference, and I'm so excited that I got to meet you personally. You're on the other side, you're on the West Coast, and I'm on the
Yes.
East Coast. But I just really am glad that social media and different organizations like Ancestor Wear could bring people together so that we could talk about it and have more understanding.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you
Okay.
so much for giving me the platform to talk about this
You
today.
are welcome, love. You're welcome. So, how can people reach you? And also, how can they reach you? And is it anything that you want to share about Kelly Wallace?
KellyWallace.org is my website. I'm on Instagram, actually, and TikTok, Kelly the Writer, and taking a little hiatus this summer from Instagram just because I've been going strong on there for about 2 years. Um, I'm at work on a memoir and hoping to eventually get that published. So that's the word on the street.
Your mom got all the information that you need to be able to write. Like, people don't even have that. Like, your mom is so bomb. Your
Yeah,
mom is bomb.
she's like a cataloger. Yeah.
Kim says this was a great conversation. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening. Yeah.
And thank you, Kim, for sharing your story as well. That's big, right? And Monique says, thank you so very much for sharing your story, Kelly.
Thank you, Monique.
Yeah, we need that. We need people to really be honest. If you need to contact us, our website is hushnomore.org. Our number is 1-888-285-2161. You can find us on social media. We're Hush No More Movement on Facebook. We're Hush No More Now on Instagram, and Hush No More with Dr. Vanessa on YouTube. And I'm really excited and honored to be able to share the stories of survivors to let you know that it is possible to heal. It is possible to become the most important person in the universe. That's who you are. That's how we heal. I always say you are the most important person in the universe. When you heal, everyone else around you will line up and your life will be so much better when you focus on yourself and then you can focus on others. So please take care of yourself, right? Please take care of yourself. And Shadera said, thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome, Shanair.
Yeah. All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. I am Dr. Vanessa Guyton, and I love you. I honor you. Thank you for being part of our tribe. And I look forward to having another conversation with Hush No More, Dr. Vanessa. Peace and blessings.